Hi everyone, so just a couple weeks ago, my favorite YouTuber Frank Tufano made a chest workout video that backfired on him horribly. The video was massively downvoted. Everyone made fun of him in the comments, pointing out that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And I made my own response video where I embarrassed him, proving that he's actually weaker than a vegan girl.
Once in a while, I will do a chest press or even a barbell bench press, but it's usually with a very light amount of weight. You know, typically on the barbell bench press, maybe 65 or 85 pounds.
So, like I said, naturally Stephanie, a vegan girl, is stronger than Frank. So Frank says he only ever benches as high as 85 pounds. Well, here's footage of naturally Stephanie benching 47.5 kilograms for 3 sets of 10, which is 105 pounds. So Frank can't even outlift a vegan girl on YouTube, and he's giving strength and muscle growth advice. Oh my god. So you'd think after all of that negative attention, criticism, and embarrassment, Frank would never make any more workout videos. But he's back at it again. He's made another workout video where he focuses on back exercises, and just like last time, the video is getting overwhelmingly downvoted. People in the comments are railing on him hard. So I think this proves that either Frank is even more special than we realized, or he has a fetish for punishment and embarrassment.
Yeah, do you guys like that? Gnarlin, what the hell is you doing? Is you playing with yourself in front of that webcam again? Can you shut the hell up, Brandine? I'm trying to concentrate. Gnarlin, I don't even know why you've been doing this. You don't make any money, nobody even likes seeing you jerk off, and everybody just makes fun of you for having a tiny little pee-pee. Just 'cause no one else likes it doesn't mean I ain't enjoying it.
So Frank's new video is titled, Can You Isolate Back Without Biceps? And before we even start watching, I just have to wonder why Frank even bothered making a video on this topic. No one should really be worried about isolating their back and removing biceps involvement unless they have some sort of injury to their biceps, in which case, yeah, it makes sense to try and avoid back exercises that will aggravate your injury. But for everyone else, why should they care? Again, the best back exercises are going to be compound movements like pull-ups and rows, and biceps are a secondary mover for those exercises. But as long as you're performing these exercises with proper technique, your biceps aren't going to overpower your back involvement. So why should anyone care? So once again, just like Frank's older video, his chest video, he's recommending people avoid the best exercises for muscular development, compound exercises, in favor of isolation movements for no good reason. Now, surprisingly, the first exercise that Frank showed off here was in fact a compound movement, the deadlift, but as you could expect from Frank, he performed this exercise with absolutely atrocious form. So for one thing, the deadlift is a hip hinge movement where you perform the exercise by hinging at the hip and maintaining a neutral spine position. Frank did not hinge at the hip or maintain a neutral spine position. What he did was curve his back on the eccentric portion and arch his back on the concentric portion, and the arch in his back is so overly exaggerated and ridiculous. He's just opening up his back to injury, so he doesn't even understand how to perform this exercise properly with safe technique. And on top of that, each repetition is incredibly inconsistent, and he's also using extraordinarily light weights, which Frank, of course, has an excuse for.
However, I do this with a light weight to isolate the muscle, so the rep range is usually 15 to 20 for the lighter sets and 10 to 12 for the moderate weight sets. If you restrict the deadlift to the upper half of the movement, it puts more stress on the upper back as opposed to the lower back, glutes, and hamstrings. I usually do these with 30 to 50 pound dumbbells.
Okay, so multiple things to point out here. First of all, Frank has this belief where he thinks if you reduce the amount of weight you're lifting with, that somehow reduces involvement of secondary movers in a given exercise. Well, of course, that's not how things work. Lowering the weight you're using doesn't reduce involvement of secondary movers. In order to reduce involvement of secondary movers, you have to modify your technique, as in use actually good, proper form, Frank. And secondly, Frank believes that heavy weight training is bad for muscle growth, and if you want to maximize hypertrophy, you should avoid lifting heavy weights, and he also recommends generally training within the 10 to 20 rep range, which is absolutely ridiculous. So there are different muscle fiber types in your body. There are fast twitch muscle fibers, slow twitch muscle fibers, and there are other fiber types that are basically a mix between fast and slow twitch. Now, your fast twitch muscle fibers, they respond best, they grow the most when you train with heavy weights, lower repetitions, and your slow twitch muscle fibers respond the best, they grow the most, with lighter weight, higher repetitions. So it makes sense to vary your rep ranges. You should sometimes train with lighter weight, higher reps like Frank does, but you should also sometimes train with heavier weight, lighter repetitions. Now, one very important thing to note here is that your fast twitch muscle fibers are the largest muscle fiber type in your body, and they also do the most amount of growing. So your training should be biased towards heavier weight training, and generally speaking, for hypertrophy training, you should train in the 6 to 12 rep range. So for Frank to claim that, yeah, you want to avoid training with heavy weights, you always want to use really light weights, high reps, that is completely counterintuitive. And I have to point this out, just look at the weights he's using. Frank claimed that for these partial deadlifts, he only ever uses 30 to 50 pound dumbbells. So in total, he's only ever doing these partial deadlifts with 60 to 100 pounds, which is incredibly weak for male strength standards. Well, guess what? Naturally Stephanie, a vegan girl who runs a fitness channel here on YouTube, she actually deadlifts more weight than Frank, and she uses a full range of motion. Here's video footage of her deadlifting with 70 kilograms or 155 pounds. So a vegan girl is able to lift more weight than Frank. She's stronger than he is, and Frank's giving us advice for training and building muscle.
Stacy32 donated $3. She says, "Dear God, you have been jerking off that tiny little weenie for 30 minutes and it's still not fully hard yet. My 12-year-old sister is more manly than you."
I'm trying my best, okay? Shut up!
With this technique, you can even perform compound exercises without using accessory muscles.
Okay, so now Frank is claiming that if you train with really light weights like he does, you can avoid involvement of secondary movers on compound exercises, which is impossible. I'm convinced that Frank doesn't actually understand what a compound exercise is. Compound exercises are multi-joint movements that involve multiple muscle groups. So there's no way to eliminate secondary movers in a compound exercise by their very nature. The only way to do this is if you're an amputee who's missing parts of your limbs. You're so stupid. So then Frank went on to demonstrate straight arm pull downs, which he did improperly. As you can see, his arms are not straight, they're quite bent. He then demonstrated a variation of this exercise with his palms facing outward, and I don't know why he'd show this variation, since the whole point of this video is to eliminate biceps involvement, and as you can see with this variation, biceps are much more involved because it introduces biceps flexion. He then went on to demonstrate another exercise. I have no idea what the hell this even is, but again, you can clearly see this exercise involves biceps flexion, so if you're going to show these sorts of dumb exercises that have biceps flexion anyway, why wouldn't you just recommend pull-ups? And then Frank did this. I think he was trying to demonstrate hypers, but all he really did here was ensure that he will develop a herniated disc in his lower back. So after this video got an overwhelmingly negative reception, being overwhelmingly downvoted, most of the comments being negative, Frank tried to fire back. He actually made a follow-up video where he tried to justify his bad advice.
I had no idea how toxic and closed-minded the fitness community truly was.
Kevin Delaney donated $7. He says, ha 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 ha.
You guys are so close-minded. Not everyone has to look like a porn star, okay?
I was just watching a video with Eddie Hall, and he didn't even know how to isolate his outer triceps, and he's one of the strongest, if not the strongest man on the planet.
So Frank constantly lies and makes the most absurd claims I've ever heard throughout this entire video. He says Eddie Hall doesn't know how to isolate his outer triceps. Why the hell would Eddie Hall need to isolate his outer triceps head? He can bench 700 pounds.
There is a big stigma in the fitness community that it is a requirement to lift heavy weight in order to put on muscle. Does your PP grow 9 inches when you see some guy deadlift more than you? What the hell is wrong with you guys? What we actually see in top level bodybuilders is the opposite. I'll let Kai Green explain this for you guys.
Alright, first thing, you're staying here like this in this fixed position and you're doing this. You know? Your bicep needs to stretch, it needs to contract. We make it more complicated when we start thinking we need to handle more weight. The primary goal here is not to contract, not to lift weights. You're not a weightlifter.
That video is over 8 years old. And that's something I discovered when I was 4 or 5 years into my weightlifting journey. I have been there and done that with heavy weight, compound movements, and yes, those have a place in a training routine, but by no means are they the primary focus of a bodybuilding routine.
So Frank Tufano just cherry-picked something that Kai Green said and took it way out of context. Kai wasn't suggesting to the guy that he should avoid heavy weight training, that lighter weight is more effective for hypertrophy. He was just telling the guy that with the weight he was using on this given exercise, he was having too much form breakdown, so he should lighten the weight so that he can use proper form. That is a far cry from what Frank Tufano was suggesting, that you should only train in the 10 to 20 rep range. You should avoid heavy weight training for hypertrophy. And guess what? Kai Green regularly trains with extremely heavy weights. Here's some footage of him incline pressing 495 pounds while training for the Mr. Olympia. You can also find other gym footage of him squatting 495 pounds. I saw him do like 450 pounds for hack squats. Here's some footage of him doing 315 pounds for stiff leg deadlifts. So the guy trains with heavy weight frequently. How the hell do you think he's gotten to the size he is, Frank? So your stupid excuse that Kai Green doesn't train with heavy weight, he uses really lightweight. Well, no, Frank. As you can see, he lifts pretty freaking heavy. Unlike you. Girls, vegan girls, are lifting heavier weights than you are. I think Kai Green would tell you to lift with a little more weight.
10 or 15 pounds when used in that isolation bicep curl is by no means a light weight. It might be light in comparison to the weight you guys are usually jerking around with your whole body, but it is more than enough weight to effectively recruit all of the muscle fibers in the bicep. This is a moderate to heavy amount of weight when being used with proper form.
So Frank is claiming that people are wrongfully accusing him of being weak because he's using strict form, and with the strict form he's using, the weights he's lifting with are actually quite heavy. And he gave the example doing dumbbell curls with 10 or 15 pounds. That's actually heavy weight for him because of the use of strict form. Well, no, Frank, if you're only able to do dumbbell curls with 10 or 15 pounds, you are extraordinarily weak for a man, and if you honestly think that's heavy weight, I suggest going to see a doctor because your testicles might not be functioning properly. And again, Stephanie, naturally Stephanie as the example here, a vegan girl, here's footage of her doing dumbbell curls with 7 kilogram dumbbells or 15 pounds. So a vegan girl is using as much weight as you are for dumbbell curls. And again, here's me as an example, somebody who actually knows how to train and trains hard. Here's footage of me me doing dumbbell curls with 65-pound dumbbells in each arm with fat grips, so I'm at a huge disadvantage and I'm using extremely strict form. I'm lifting the weight very slowly up and down, and I'm not leaning or swinging the weights. So no, Frank, you are incredibly weak for a man, and vegan girls can outlift you.
I made a chest workout video last week where I was pinned to a goddamn cross. The amount of criticism was unbelievable. Same with my back workout video yesterday. Ironically, Athlete X made a chest video advocating for similar techniques, and you guys are praising him.
You don't just get down there and bounce right out of it like that. You gotta savor that stretch on the pec at the bottom. So he's in this position for 1 or 2 seconds and then come back out of it. Think of it like a pause dip. Down, he has the tension here, you can see it working, and now come up. And what this is doing is just exploring more full range of motion. There's no magic technique that's delivering impulses right here to this area that's going to make it overhang and get wider. It's just that he's training this exercise through a more intentioned full range of motion.
It amazes me that Frank thinks he can actually get away with lying like this. So now Frank is making the claim that his advice and his demonstration of technique is similar to Jeff Cavalier of Athlete X. Well, here's video footage of Frank's, prior chest video where he was performing dips, and here is that compared to Jeff Cavalier of Athlete X demonstrating dips. Tell me if you can see a difference here. So, no, Frank, you have no idea of what you're talking about. Your advice, your breakdown of technique is nowhere close to Athlete X, and you can't even perform these exercises safely.
Just because you bench press 300 pounds doesn't mean you should be discrediting someone for using 15 or 20 pound dumbbells for fly work.
Frank, you are so incredibly weak that I honestly think you should go see a doctor because you clearly don't have functioning testicles, and vegan girls on YouTube can outlift you. No one should take anything you say seriously.
There was some 5'11", 300 pound vegan sack of monkey critiquing my fitness video last week, but guess what? The dude is falling apart. He's had, a dozen injuries, even multiple surgeries to correct those injuries.
As a lot of you already know, I've had surgery on this knee, and because of the surgery, this knee's kind of weird. It clicks and pops sometimes, and it's a bit uncomfortable. Because here, when I was doing dips with a 60-pound dumbbell, I pulled my right pectoral, and it was right near my armpit. I haven't noticed any bruising or discoloration, so I don't think it's that bad. But it is really sore, even to the touch, and I heard a popping noise, so that's also not too good. Okay, well, first of all, Frank, I'm not 5'11", 300 pounds, I'm 6'3", 230 pounds, and if you think I'm so weak, so out of shape, then how about we settle our differences in an MMA match? I know that you live in New York, my probation is over, by the way, so I can legally cross the border, so it's not a far drive for me to get to you. Any day, any time you want, I can cross the border, we can find an MMA gym, I can drive over to New York, and I can beat your scrawny little ass into the ground. How about that, Frank? And secondly, my issue with my kneecaps popping out, that's actually genetic. That was happening before I ever started weight training, and I had to get surgery for that genetic problem that I have. So it has nothing to do with improper technique when I'm training. My knees are just prone to dislocating. And secondly, I hurt my chest that one time 2 years ago, by the way, when doing dips. That is literally the only injury I've ever had to my chest over the years and years I've been lifting, and since then, I've been able to hit a 315-pound bench press for a single with no injuries. So weird how you're claiming that I'm this fat, out-of-shape piece of I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, Frank, I can bench 315. You've admitted to only being able to bench 85 pounds. So, again, if you think you're in so much better shape, so much stronger than me, you know how to train, then let's settle this in a cage. I can drive down to you any time you're free, and I can beat your ass into the ground.
And we know the prevalence of injuries in people who lift heavy weights compared to bodybuilders like Kai Green, Dexter Jackson, who are training for muscle recruitment, not strength.
And again, Frank doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Both Kai Green and Dexter Jackson train with very heavy weight. Even while they're doing their Mr. Olympia prep, there isn't a significant separation between muscular size and muscular strength. If you want big muscles, you have to expose them to heavy weight training. It's just that simple. All of the biggest bodybuilders have to do that. And on top of that, both of these people, Kai Green and Dexter Jackson, have had injuries in the gym. Just recently, Dexter Jackson tore his bicep. Guess what, Frank? I've never had a bicep tear, so does that mean I know more about biceps training than Dexter Jackson? No. Look, when you're lifting heavy weights and you've been lifting for a very long period of time, you're going to eventually get injured. Just because you've had injuries in the past, that doesn't mean you don't know how to train. That doesn't mean your training isn't ideal for hypertrophy. It's just that, Frank, most people train hard. They actually want to grow muscle and get stronger, unlike you, who's perfectly fine with being weaker than a vegan girl.
There was a video about 2 weeks ago featuring Mike O'Hearn, Jay Cutler, and Larry Wheels. If you look at the form and weight Jay Cutler was using on the bench press compared to Mike O'Hearn or Larry Wheels, you would say that his form is dangerous and he's not using a weight that is conducive to building muscle. Yet, Jay Cutler had a peak muscle size larger than any of these men had ever achieved.
I'll stay light. My warm-up's different from you guys, though.
And again, Frank is lying and cherry-picking and taking things out of context. Like Jay Cutler said himself, this is only a warm-up set. And if you take a look at training footage of Jay Cutler when he was at his biggest, when he was training for the Mr. Olympia, guess what? He trained with heavy weight. Here's some footage of him doing incline barbell bench press with 405 pounds. Here's a shot of him doing front squats with 450 pounds on the Smith machine. So, yeah, but believe it or not, I know this is hard to believe, Frank, but you see those guys with the huge, massive muscles? They lift heavy weight. Unlike you, who can't even lift more weight than a vegan girl. And guess what else? Jay Cutler has suffered injuries in his career. He did have a torn bicep. So, I guess I know more about weight training than Jay Cutler because I've never torn my bicep, right? So Frank, since you don't seem to mind the public embarrassment, please keep making these weight training videos. We all love laughing at you. We all think it's hilarious that you're weaker than a vegan girl, naturally Stephanie. And if you want to have an MMA match with me, if you think you're so much stronger and in better shape than me, then, prove it. Let's fight in a cage. I'm off of probation, so I can cross the border anytime, and we can set that up soon, hopefully. And if you like this video, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon or my website. I have some funding perks you may find interesting. If you're looking for clothing, then check out the Vegan Gain store. And as always, keep making those vegan and heavyweight gains.
What a relief! When will this poisonous product cease? This is another public service announcement. You can believe it or you can doubt it. Let us begin now with the cow. The way it gets to your plate and